The second time in 2 days, a government minister has acknowledged that millions of pounds of taxpayers' money has been lost in the interests of what was meant to be greater efficiency. Today it was the Defence Secretary Philip Hammond who called a halt to plans to contract out the buying of military equipment and weapons. Our Deputy Political Editor Chris Shipp has more details.
You may not have paid too much attention to how the country buys its ships and its jets, but the abandoned reform of the defence procurement body has just cost you several £1 million, and the Defence Secretary is not the only minister pouring millions away in the pursuit of saving money. Everything that flies or sails, if it's rotor blades or radar, it's purchased by the MOD's procurement arm. The government wanted a private company to run it more efficiently and more cheaply, but when all but one of the private operators pulled out, the plans had to be pulled themselves.
Of course it's the statement I didn't want to make, but let me tell him how it works. In opposition, you can stand on the sidelines slinging mud and insults. In government, you have to deal with the situation as it exists in the real world.
That real world means the civil service will still run defence equipment and support from its base in Bristol as it does now. But those who want a more market-driven approach to government suggest all may not be lost.
They said they wanted to bring in private sector skills to improve that capability, and actually what Philip Hammond says today is that he will still do an awful lot of that.
Wasting a few million in the name of cost saving is not unique to the Ministry of Defence. It cost the MOD nearly £20 million to conclude it could not get a private company to run defence procurement. Over at Transport, they've so far notched up £50 million trying to find a private operator to run the East Coast Main Line. And at Work and Pensions, they may have to write down as much as £130 million on the computer system to run the new Universal Credit.
Labour, of course, had its own issues with the defence budget here, and nor can the party look back with pride at its attempt in government to create complex IT systems. But this is a coalition committed to cutting costs and lectures on the need to spend taxpayers' money wisely. So 20 million to effectively get back to square one doesn't match the rhetoric.
So we've had a wasted 2 years in terms of this process, millions of pounds wasted to achieve nothing.
It proves there is no cost-free result when ministers abandon their plans or change their minds.
So, Chris, how damaging is this for the government?
Well, Julie, defence sources were saying to me tonight that we should see the £20 million here in the context of the £14 billion that we spend each year on defence equipment. But, you know, I think the Ministry of Defence is quite rightly singled out for criticism in this particular area. You may recall the decision recently to change the type of jets which fly from our new aircraft carriers, a change of mind that cost £200 million, and this from a Defence Secretary that prides himself on his figures. And then we had what I think I can only describe as another tetchy, another defensive performance today in the House of Commons from the Work and Pensions Secretary Ian Duncan-Smith, called in there to defend the cost and the changes to his universal credit system. This is these flagship welfare reforms. Now, he admitted to a £40 million write-off, but the National Audit Office thinks there's perhaps another £90 million to come. So why does it all matter? Well, this is a government which has built its reputation on attacking Labour's recklessness in office, that it can do more with less. But I think it really does undermine its credibility when there's a few million wasted here and a few million wasted there.
Chris, thank you. A liver surgeon